If you have ever talked to, say, your girlfriends or one of your girlfriends who is or has fallen prey to a predatory scheme, and you may have heard the following: how could he or she fall for that? Can't they see how fake he or she is? And why don't they just leave this person? We have talked about the cycle of abuse and the complicated psychological reasons that men and women go back to very obvious abusers. But there is also another factor at play in predatory schemes, and it is something that we haven't talked about much, which is called grooming. So, how do these predators ensnare really good people? Grooming, it is a tool that these predators use to gain the trust of their target and ultimately manipulate them to gain that trust, sexual, monetary, or other advantages. And you may have heard the term as it applies to children, but it can also apply to adults. Adults do groom other adults. In fact, some adults may use other adults, and in particularly, well, but they'll use both men and women of the same gender or even the opposite gender to assist them in the grooming of the new victim. Along with the countless other forms of manipulation, grooming is not a very cut and dry technique. It plays on the victim's insecurities, and even in a strong minded person, this can wreak havoc psychologically. So, recognizing grooming for what it is can help you avoid being groomed yourself or spot and help support a friend survive a predator. There are stages of grooming, and master manipulators use grooming to get what they want out of someone, whether it is sex, morally questionable behavior, money, or something else. Whether the target is an adult or a child, the stages of grooming by the predator towards their target are typically the same. They have a friendship, there's a friendship forming, and this predator, they will work to determine the target's candidacy by asking questions about the target's life, gauging their vulnerability, and also getting contact information such as social media handles, phone numbers, email addresses, and the like. So they will form a relationship, and the predator, again, they are working to gain the victim's trust, and often they'll do it through secret sharing or by fulfilling a need. For instance, they may run errands for the victim or pay their bills, and the predator may also, say, share a secret that only the target can know, and then ask for a similar secret to level the playing field, and they'll gauge their threats. The predator, they gauge in this risk assessment behavior to kind of gauge how accessible, how vulnerable the victim truly is. And this is more common among predators who are grooming children, but it can also absolutely happen with adults who are in relationships with these people, and they'll check their relationship strengths with their family and their friends and their roommates, and they do this in order to begin the isolation process, and they begin to distance the target from their friends and their family. And this is done in so many different ways, and including surprisingly kind of positive methods, such as using compliments and doing favors. They may tell the intended victim that they feel an especially strong, special connection to them, and that they understand each other in a special way that no one else will ever get. And control is the predator's intent. So by appearing calm and concerning, the predator is seeking to intense their influence over the victim in order to advance this agenda that they have. So the abuse in this phase, the predator will start to use the target to meet their needs. And with children, this is usually like a sexual in nature. But predators, they will use victims for money, again, to accomplish morally questionable things from them or to fulfill an emotional needs. There is maintenance involved, and once the victim is doing exactly what the predator wants, as the predator's figuring out the victim along the way. They will work in order to keep them under control through various means. And these methods, they usually include the things that we are familiar with, such as gaslighting and the crazy making behavior, and that telling the victim that their feelings are unreasonable and that they are crazy for feeling the way that they do, destroying that victim's self-esteem and making them question their reality. And once the victim is doing what the predator wants, it's game over, and they'll continue to isolate the victim from their loved ones. They will grooming. Okay, it is common again for pedophiles and those with narcissistic personality disorder, people who are con men, that type of person. And the results to a victim can be absolutely catastrophic in terms of the loss of self-esteem and personal safety and psychological trauma, and harm to the victim's financial resources and personal wealth, not to mention the tremendous amount of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So this can even go so far as to get into flying monkeys and abuse by proxy. Abuse by proxy or flying monkeys, this can be another part of the grooming process. And in this situation, the abuser, they'll use people outside of themselves in order to further inflict harm on the victim and to convince them to stay with the abuser. And these third parties, as we know, are called flying monkeys. And most often, the flying monkeys, they have no idea that they are being used to carry out the narcissist agenda and to groom a subject. And they have been convinced that the predator is not the bad guy and that his or her intentions are correct. And they are often, say, they're the abuser's friends or their family, especially spouses, girlfriends, children, friends, and siblings. And they are enlisted by this person, by this predator, to dismiss every single one of the victim's concerns. And a manipulator will even convince the victim's family members to side with the narcissist and to actually believe that the victim is the crazy one, and that they'll get authority figures such as police and pastors to side with the abuser. So what can you do if you notice grooming behavior, especially if you notice this in children, or whether it's a child or an adult? You should immediately take the appropriate steps to eliminate or at least limit, especially a child's interaction with this person, and ask them about the relationship that they have with this person, and maintain an open conversation with your child, offering a safe place to talk without judgment. If a friend or a loved one is the subject of grooming, it is important to keep an open line of communication with them as well, and help them talk through their issues and point out where the abuser may be overstepping, such as asking for monetary resources, making the victim spend way too much alone time with them, not allowing to go anywhere, pulling them away from their loved ones, and remind your friend that there are people who are there for them no matter what, and encourage them to get away from the abuser. And remember that because of the manipulation at play, your friend will probably more than likely get mad at you for trying to take him or her away from the groomer. So be patient and be prepared as you would with any abuse victim. My name is Sara Ann Brown, and this is Narcissistic Abuse 101.